Meeting will come to order. May I have a roll call, please?
Iannarino,
Here.
Border,
Here.
Kane, Khan,
Here.
Smolka,
Here.
Shupai,
Here.
Wong.
Here.
Thank you all for coming out tonight. I'm impressed with how large the crowd is. When you get here a little after 6:30 and there's hardly any parking, and you know it's going to be an impressive board meeting with lots of children that are being honored. So thanks for coming out and bringing your kids. The mission statement of School District 15 is to produce world-class learners by building a connected learning community.
This evening, we're going to be led in the pledge by Mr. Warren from Conyers Learning Academy and some of his students.
President Shupai, Dr. Thompson, members of the board, members of the community, I want to first thank all of you for giving us the opportunity to come by tonight and lead you guys in the Pledge of Allegiance. My name is Matt Warren. I'm the principal at Conyers Learning Academy. And today we have with a number of my friends from CLA representing the 4 different programs that we have over at Conyers Learning Academy. We have 2 different preschool programs serving students ages 3 to 5. One, the early childhood program for students with individualized education plans, and one of the other is ECDEC, which is our Preschool for All program. And then we have some of our kindergarten through 8th grade students that are representing our multiple needs program and our ACES program. So I'm first just going to do a quick introduction of who we have with us here today, and then we'll be able to lead you in the pledge. We have one of our graduating 8th graders, Cole, Blake, Adrian, Colin, also graduating at the end of the year, Nicole, Aaliyah, Jabril, Hamza, Daniel, and Ariana. So if you would all please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Ready. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Nice job, guys. Let's go right around that way and get to see Dr. Thompson.
Thank you. Thanks, Matt.
Hi, thank you.
Congratulations. Thank you for Yeah, sure. At least everyone else is having school districts for Thank you for coming tonight. Thank you for coming.
Why did you say that? You don't know that.
Thank you. Thanks for coming tonight. Here's a light up pen for it. Thank you for coming tonight. Keep up the good work. Here's a pen for you. Thank you for coming. Keep up the good work. Good night. It's cool. Nice to see you.
like those pens, they light up.
You get the pen. Sure. Have a good night. Thank you for coming. This pen that lights up. Take care.
All right.
Good evening, Dr. Thompson, President Shupai, members of the board, and distinguished guests. It gives me great pleasure to present the National Geographic Bee winners from our district. The National Geographic Bee is an annual competition organized by the National Geographic Society designed to inspire and reward students' curiosity about the world. Students in grades 4 through 8 from 10,000 schools across the United States will compete in the 2019 National Geographic Bee for a chance to win college scholarships and the glory of being the National Geographic Bee champion. 4 of our students advanced to the State Geography Bee on March 29th in Normal, Illinois, or will advance on March 29th in Normal, Illinois. The state qualifiers, please raise your hand, and then we're going to have all of you introduce yourselves. The state qualifiers are Zian, Thomas, okay, Chase, and Rhea, or Rhea? Rhea, okay, great. We would also like to acknowledge the accomplishments of our 2019 school-wide winners, Betsy,
My name is Betsy and I'm from Sanborn.
okay, and Dylan. Dylan couldn't be with us tonight. Please go down the row and tell us your name and the school that you're representing so that everybody in the crowd knows who you are and where you come from. Go ahead.
I'm Thomas from Walter Assembly Junior.
I'm Roseanne from Sanborn. I'm Betsy from Sanborn. I'm Chase and I'm from Elmwood. I'm Noah and I'm from Hannah. Hi, I'm Rhea and I'm from Marion, Jordan.
Okay. Please join me in acknowledging these wonderful students.
Good luck at the state tournament. Congratulations. Thanks for coming. Good work. Congratulations.
Good evening. My name is Colleen Mullins. I'm the District Literacy Coordinator. Good evening to President Shupai, Dr. Thompson, the board, and our wonderful District 15 school community. I have the honor this evening of introducing you to some remarkable thinkers. I am here to talk about the District 15 Spelling Bee. Spelling we think is, oh, it's just spelling, it's just knowing about words. When you're in the day, if you're there at the District Spelling Bee, you hear things like, is there an alternative pronunciation? What is the language of origin? What are some other things that everyone asks?
Can you use it in a sentence?
What's the definition? May I ask for it to be repeated? There is a lot of thinking that goes into understanding how words work. So while it comes through in spelling, the amazing brains that are up here actually think through and have a depth of word knowledge that I think surpasses, I don't mean to, sell any of us short, but probably about 90% of the people in this room. So I have the honor of introducing you to our school spelling bee winners. In addition to that, I will also have the opportunity to introduce you to our district spelling bee winner, Calvin, who has also gone on to win the regional spelling bee, and he will be going to Washington, D.C. for the script spelling bee in May. But I would like to take the opportunity to make sure that every student and speller that is standing in front of us today is recognized for the amazing courage that they have of standing at their schools, taking the risk in front of their colleagues, their peers, their teachers, and everyone. When we get nervous speaking in a group, they think in front of a group. And you are all amazing thinkers, and your brains watching them work is remarkable. Can you please introduce yourselves to the group, your first name, your school, and your grade?
I'm Lainey Nagano and I'm from Unbridge. Fifth grade. I'm Abie, I'm a fourth grader and I'm from Whitney.
I'm Kabir Iyengar. I'm a fifth grader and I'm at a Pleasant Hill.
I'm Trinity. I'm in sixth grade at Kimball Elementary School.
I'm Manaswini, I go to Wallaban and I'm in sixth grade.
I'm Joe, and I'm a sixth grader at Sanborn Elementary. I'm Tyler. I'm a 6th grader at Satura.
I'm Calvin and I'm an 8th grader at Plum Grove.
I'm Avni, and I'm a 5th grader at Marion Jordan Elementary. I'm Tunish. I'm a 6th grader at Winston Campus Elementary.
I'm Joseph. I'm 8th grader at East Campus.
I'm Emma, and I'm a 5th grader at School Arcata. I'm Ashby, and I'm a 6th grader at Winston Elementary School. I'm Annika, and I'm a 6th grader at Virginia Lake Elementary.
May I please ask for everyone to give these amazing thinkers a round of applause? I will also ask that everyone give a round of applause to their families and their teachers, because this is not done alone. Thank you very much. So thank you and congratulations to all of you remarkable students. And Dr. Thompson?
I've got a pen for you. Come on over here.
Present you with the prize.
And Calvin, if you need somebody to go with you, a chaperone, I'd be happy to.
Oh, congratulations, everybody. Nice job again, Calvin. Congratulations.
There you go.
I think one of my most impactful memories from elementary school was being in like the district-wide spelling bee at the Chicago Public School System, and standing in front of everybody and realizing, in your own school where everybody knows you, you're scared, but then you're placed that nobody, you don't know hardly anybody, and it's terrifying. And to this day, I remember the word that I got wrong and what it means. So very millionaire. Somebody make sense.
Yeah.
All right, lots of fun tonight. I'm pleased to be able to present the 2-ball winners for the District 2-ball competition. 126 boys competed at the Palatine Park District on Tuesday, February 5th, and about 120 girls competed on Wednesday, February 6th. We had 2 divisions, large schools which include Hunting Ridge, Lake Louise, Lincoln, Paddock, Virginia Lake, Pleasant Hill, Jane Addams, and Central Road, as well as small division schools which consisted of Kimball Hill, Thomas Jefferson, Marion Jordan, Winston Elementary, Willow Bend, Sanborn, and Whiteley. 2-ball is an event where 2 students have 2 one-minute rounds to compete for points marked on a basketball court. Students need to pass to their partners after their shots and move around the court to different spots. Spots can be worth 2, 3, 4, or 5 points, depending on the distance from the basket. They can earn bonus points for attempting shots at each spot, and they are very careful not to travel or double dribble. Both rounds were added together for the final score. It was an exciting and positive event for parents, teachers, administrators, and friends, and other spectators of the 2-ball competitors. The students put in a lot of time with their intramural coaches to practice their basketball skills and work with their partners. Congratulations to all of the participants, and at this time their coaches are going to introduce their athletes and what school they're attending.
Good evening. My name is Mike Duffy, PE teacher from Marion Jordan. My small school division boy winner is Arjun. Unfortunately, his partner is home ill this evening. His name is Nathan, and they won the small school boys division with a score of 86.
Hello, I'm Sharon Rust from Winston Campus Elementary, and I'm very proud to recognize Mary Kate and Holly. They also took first place with a final score of 78. Congratulations.
Hello, I'm David Sobel from Hunting Ridge Elementary School, and I'm also very proud to recognize my 2 winners. I got the boys winner, Sam and Bryce, with a score of 107. And also from the large school division with our girls, Avery and Kaylee, with a score of 94.
How about one more round of applause for these students and their coaches?
David, good seeing you. Congratulations. I was there when you guys were shooting. It was great.
Nicely, congratulations. Thank you.
Another pen. Sharon. Congratulations. Yeah, All right, that was a lot of fun. It's what we're all about, kids, and we give them a lot of opportunities, and I appreciate all the adults that make these opportunities available for these children and support them along the way. It's kind of fun to recognize them. The next item in my section is a presentation from our friends at the library board. And so they're going to come up and talk about an upcoming referendum they have.
All right, thank you. Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, board members. Good evening, President Chupai. Hopefully I won't need that mic. My name is Tracy Boland. I'm a trustee at the Palatine Public Library District, and I'm here tonight with Brian Herner. He's the references manager at the library. And since you are all leaders of a public institution, you understand that one of your greatest challenges is to make sure that your organization has the resources that you need to fulfill your mission. So Brian and I appreciate that you're allowing us to share tonight what we're doing over at the library to help us meet our resources challenges there, because we want to give our patrons more of what they love. All right, I did that wrong.
It just went out of presentation.
Yeah. More of what they love. Okay, so we're at the library. We love information. We love data. And the numbers that we've collected show that our patrons love us and get a lot out of the library. So by a show of hands, who is a library card holder in the room? Any library card holders? Fantastic, fantastic. So you are probably represented on this slide. The thing that's not represented on this slide, though, because it's hard to show, is the positive effect that our awesome staff has on the patron experience. So we have lots of people come into the library and they come back and they use all our resources, and we think that that's because of our awesome staff. You can't measure, it's really hard to measure how dedicated and knowledgeable and welcoming and engaging they are. And they're the reason that we have such amazing numbers. 89,000 residents in our district, and 72% of them have a card and are using the library regularly. All right. So as part of the stewardship duties for the trustees over the past few years, we've had the library conduct a capital reserve study and a community survey and a space needs analysis. And all of this has been done with an eye toward understanding where the library is today and where we want the library to be tomorrow, and what resources is the library going to have to close that gap, and what are the repercussions for the community if the library can't close that gap. And so the trustees have looked at a number of different funding options, and we've determined that the option that's best going to meet the needs of the library is for us to go out to the community and ask for a limiting rate increase. And that's going to happen in the form of a referendum on the ballot for the April 2nd election that's just around the corner. We anticipate that if the referendum passes, it's going to impact the median homeowner in our district by about $52 a year. Okay. So this slide has a chart that would allow you to estimate what the impact would be for you if the market value of your home is something different besides the median value. The column across the top, if you find the value that's closest to yours, you can drop down to the blue line, and that'll show you what we think that'll give you an idea of what we think the impact would be if the referendum passes, what the impact would be for you. Okay, so these next couple of slides are going to show the actual language that's going to appear on the ballot. And it's kind of dry,
It's a bit confusing. So the library staff and the trustees have been going out into the community and doing these presentations to help the residents understand exactly what the impact of the referendum passage will be for them, and exactly what will happen, what will have to happen if the referendum doesn't pass. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Brian, and he's going to talk a little bit about the numbers underlying our analysis and why we believe that this referendum is a reasonable and responsible request to make of the community. Thank you.
I'm gonna put you in charge of the clicker. 'Cause
Got
you
it.
Got that figured out.
All right.
So again, my name is Brian Herner. I am an employee of the library. I'm in charge of the reference department. We call it ISD just to make things confusing because we love acronyms at the library. So this first slide that I want to talk a little bit about, it's got a lot of information on it. I don't want you to get too hung up about it because all of this information is available on our website at palatinelibrary.org/more. But this is showing why we felt we needed to go for a referendum. If you look at that left-hand side, that shows you major expenses that we see coming up in the next few years, things that we have to pay for, roofs and important things like that, HVAC systems and so forth. And then on the right, it shows you what our finances look like. Things get hairy towards the end of that, and we're in the red. The red ones show you what happens if the referendum doesn't pass. To our reserves, the blue bars show you what happens if the referendum does pass. So we anticipate smooth sailing if it passes and not so smooth sailing if it doesn't pass. 95% of our operating budget comes from property taxes. And then you can see there's a yellow sliver there. That's a few odds and ends that we get from other sources. But what I really want you to take away from here is a look at the dollar bill at the bottom there. That shows you a breakdown of where your property tax goes to. The small green bar at the right is the library taxes. Every dollar of property tax revenue that comes out of your pocket, 2.68 cents comes to the library. And then this is a comparison of between us and some of the surrounding libraries. We wanted to include this to show that we're not asking for a lot of bells and whistles. We're looking, we're being very efficient and always have been with your tax dollar. And again, it's hard to read, I know, but the green bar on the one on the left shows where Palatine is. Arlington Heights on the left, next to that Barrington, then Indian Trails, then Palatine, then Rolling Meadows, then Schaumburg. And that shows you what the revenues we have per patron in these different library districts. So ours is much lower, and even with the addition of the referendum, that gets us up to the dotted line. So we're not asking that you, we recognize that this is Palatine, not Arlington Heights and Barrington. So we're not expecting you to fund us at that sort of level, but we are hoping to get a few more dollars that we can do a lot of cool things with, which we'll talk about shortly. And then also, the chart on the right shows you our efficiency, our employee efficiency, the number of employees at all these libraries per 1,000 residents. And we're at the bottom of that list again. We have 1.2 employees per 1,000 residents. Arlington Heights at the top has 3.2. So but we think we do a great job with what we have. We just think we could do a lot more with a little bit more. And this shows you what we're going to do with the money. We estimate there will be approximately $1.7 million more generated per year. And what we will do with that money, 57% of that will be for the renovations we talked about, 23% for service improvements, and 20% for interior renovations. We'll talk a little bit about those things coming up. So if the referendum passes, I'm not going to read all of these for you, but this is what we're hoping to do. We're always we're very happy and very proud of what we do with the technology at the library. We'd like to do more and keep those up to date. Technology moves very quickly and it's expensive to replace, and we would like to keep doing that as often as we have been doing it in the past. We're hoping to do some more collaborative spaces, study rooms. I don't know if anybody goes to the library in the afternoon. Those are hugely popular, and we would like to add some more because we are not able to satisfy everybody's needs right now. We're hoping to increase our service hours. We'll continue to give all the items that you want to download and check out from the library, and do some more things outside the walls of the library as well. So this is almost impossible for anybody to see except for me, and but this is what the library will look like. And again, information is all available on the website. If you've been in the library recently, right in the middle of that screen is the staircase that goes up to the second floor. We're going to open that up quite a bit. You'll be able to see much better around the entire library and see what you're wanting to get to. We're going to change some of the study rooms around. The Digital Media Center will move upstairs and some things like that. Second floor, on the left-hand side, those colored bars show some new study rooms that we're adding. Down in the bottom right corner, there's going to be a makerspace, which is going to be really cool. And some, in the green screen, you can see that green bar in the middle. That's where those green screens will migrate from the first floor.
Ryan, you said makerspace?
Yeah, makerspace. That's going. A lot of libraries have that now. It's where they'll have a 3D printer. And a lot of other things like that, and also it would be a space for teaching craft classes. Those are immensely popular at the library. So it'll be a dedicated space for that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. The Rand Road branch is up by the Walmart, and we're in desperate need of some new furniture. That will be the main change there, but we're also would be taking out some small walls that will open that space up some. And then the Hoffman Estates branch, which is at the Willow Recreation Center, we'll rearrange that. And again, that some walls came down, and we'll have some more room for space. Up at the top left of that room, you can see a window that actually goes into the gym, and that's where the service desk used to be, and basketballs would bounce off of that, and kids would put their faces up against the window, and it was a little distracting. So they're thinking about moving the service desk up till the top there. So that's all the wonderful things we're going to do if the referendum passes. If the referendum doesn't pass, this is the bad stuff that would happen. We can't not do the repairs that we're talking about. Those are things that are happening. We've had leaks in the roof already. Our HVAC, we have a guy that comes in from our HVAC company that's might as well work for the library because he's there just about every day. So those things have to be done. So if we have to pay those out of existing budgets, that means we'll probably have to reduce hours and days of service. We won't be able to get as many new materials, which would mean longer wait times for those new movies and music and books. We would still do our best to do state-of-the-art software and equipment and technology, but it probably would not get replaced as often as it does today. And we probably would have to reduce the partnership and outreach things that we do right now outside the library. So here's some important information, which I'm sure you're all familiar with because some of you are up for re-election in the coming. Oh no, not you, but district. Yeah. So first day of voting is the 18th, and last day to request a mail ballot. You can see all of this here. Election day is the 2nd, and last day for mail-in ballots have to be posted on the 2nd as well. Now, we've been having some community forums around the community. Some of those have passed, as you can see, but we've got one coming up on March 19th at Fremd High School, and then at the library again on March 25th, and then the next week, the Tuesday after that, will be the actual election. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact our director, Jeannie Dilger, and her email and phone number is there. And again, palatinelibrary.org/more if you want to revisit some of this, and there's even more information there as well. And I thank you very much. Are there any questions? Thank
We'll-
you.
Yeah, we'll be hanging out for the rest of your board meeting. If anybody in the public has any questions, you can see us after the board meeting.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Next item in my section is a presentation by Sue Gehring. She's going to share with you an overview of our special education services. I recruited Sue to come up when I learned that our past director was leaving, and she is really a phenomenal person. She's continued the program of our special ed services that people talk about all throughout the state. People move here because of our special education services. We educate every child that is in our community, and many of them have some significant needs, and I'm extremely proud of what Sue and her team do to make sure that those kids' needs are met and that they get quality education. She is going to talk to you about the wide spectrum of kids tonight.
Yeah. President Shupai, Dr. Thompson, and members of the board, I do appreciate the opportunity to come before you tonight and present an overview of special education. And it, by happenstance, turned to be the same night that Conyers Learning Academy was presenting the pledge to you, so you got to see some of our children doing something special at the board meeting. Through the presentation, we're going to start with a little bit of history because it's relevant as to the special education laws that have been passed through time that brings us to where we are today. But then we will delve into some specifics about our own district programming. So, a glimpse into history. In 1975, Gerald Ford was president. I was walking the halls of high school at that time, and the Education for All Handicapped Children Act was passed. This was hallmark legislation because it was really seen as the very first time that public school doors were opened for all children in the community with disabilities, no matter the severity or nature of their disability. This was the first time that mandates for a free, appropriate public education were put into place, known as FAPE, and we'll talk about FAPE a little bit later, and that the individualized education program, the IEP, was really specified and delineated and really seen from that point forward as a legally binding document between families and school districts. And it really, came to be into place that from that point forward, we wrote IEPs. I have a lump on my finger from writing IEPs on triplicate paper that will never go away.
Sue, I could just interject. I graduated in 1975, and I look back, and there were no special ed children in my schools in my entire career, and I thought, wow, that was, looking back, that was a tragedy.
We've come a long way in 40 years. In 1990, the act was converted to the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, the IDEA, which is still the basis of the law under which we operate today. In 1990, the disabilities of autism and traumatic brain injury were added to the list of disabilities that would be served through an IEP. The IDEA was amended in 1997. That was about the same time that our district here in Palatine pulled out of the cooperative and began serving all students within our schools, with very few in private therapeutic day schools, but the majority right here in our own schools. The 1997 amendments were really important because that outlined the role of parents in the process and also provided parents with very specific due process rights and resolutions for complaint and mediation kinds of systems. There's another acronym coming, Least Restrictive Environment, or the LRE. And Least Restrictive Environment, which we will talk about a little bit later in the presentation as well, was the first time in 1997 where we began to hear the word inclusion as a prevalent concept for how we serve students with disabilities. As Dr. Thompson mentioned, prior to that time, though in 1997 the doors were opened, children were often served in classrooms and segments of the building that were not very inclusive. So here in 1997, over 20 years later, Least Restrictive Environment became a tenet by which we operate. The IDEA was amended again in 2004. That was relevant because just shortly prior to that, in 2001, No Child Left Behind became a federal law. So the IDEA needed to be upgraded and amended so that that emphasis on all students being assessed, students with disabilities having their outcomes matter, And there was a real shift from compliance focus, where we as special education staff were very focused prior to that on checking off boxes, making sure we met timelines, being certain that we kind of dotted our I's and crossed our T's. And after 2004, substance really began to matter. What are we doing with children while they're receiving their special education services, and are we measuring their outcomes and their growth? As I said, we are full of acronyms, and I wanted to revisit FAPE a little bit because free appropriate public education is one of the most litigated components of special education. And that's because the word appropriate means different things to different people. What's appropriate is sometimes varying opinions. Families may feel one way, school districts may feel another, and we have to work in partnership with one another to really emphasize the I in the IEP, which means that that IEP is individualized for that particular student. There's no one formula, there's no one program, there's no one solution that fits all children with IEPs. When we look at how children become eligible for special education, children receive a comprehensive evaluation and then must be eligible under one of 14 categories of disabilities. I wanted to point out in particular for you the category of developmental delay, because it's important to note that public school systems begin educating children with disabilities at the age of 3. And developmental delay is one of those disability categories that really captures the needs of a lot of preschoolers. By the time they're approaching their 10th birthday, a child has to be then eligible under one of the other 13 disability categories. And lastly, to lay more of the foundation before we move into some District 15 specifics, the LRE, or the least restrictive environment, is a critical component of, and a significant part of conversations when we're sitting at the table with parents and staff and administrators, because the least restrictive environment requires us to always consider first if a child can be served in general education classrooms. That's always the go-to, that's where we start the conversation. And we talk about whether supplemental aids and services can be provided and added to a child's plan in order for them to have as much participation with their typically developing general education peers as possible. We can only remove students from general education for either a portion or all of their day if we've exhausted those conversations about what kinds of supports and services may a child need. That's why we have related services staff, that's why we have paraprofessionals who serve our children. All of those are considered related and supportive services. If we move now and look a little bit to District 15 specific information, of those 14 disability categories, this is a graph that shows you where the preponderance of incidents of disabilities fall in our district. So you can see some of those low incident disabilities such as deaf blindness, traumatic brain injury, vision impairment. We have a very small percentage of our children with IEPs that fall under those eligibility categories. Whereas developmental delay and speech and language are our two areas where a larger proportion of our students are eligible to receive services. When I look at trend data over the last 4 years, autism and other health impairment are the two disability categories that are growing at the most rapid rate. And other health impairment, if you're not familiar with that, that captures medical diagnoses that have a significant impact on learning. So that may be things like ADHD, anxiety disorders, mood disorders, seizure disorders, all of those things that are based in a medical diagnosis. But other health impairment and autism are our two that are growing at the greatest rate right now. When we talked about least restrictive environment, or LRE, schools are required to provide a continuum of placement options because the least restrictive environment for one child is not necessarily the same as it is for another child. So as a public school, this chart will show you on the left side all of the different programs that we have housed within our 20 schools. And on the right side, you'll see the different locations of where those programs are housed today, this year. Once in a while, because of space issues or because of changes in the number of students we have in certain classrooms, we occasionally have had to shift programs to different buildings. but we try to avoid it to the greatest degree possible because it is very disruptive for children when their programs need to move from place to place. And you also see Conyers Learning Academy on there in a couple different spots, and Mr. Warren will be doing his school presentation later on this evening, so you'll hear more about CLA. One of the measures that we are responsible for tracking, for measuring, and for making sure that we're falling within state guidelines is the percentage of time where children receive services. We call these our educational environments. So on the bottom of the graph, that's noting if a child is spending 80% or more of their school day, their instructional day, in regular education settings. Another category is if that child's time in general education versus special education is between 40 and 79%, less than 40%, and then private day school. So on one end, we have 59% of our students with IEPs who are spending at least 80% of their instructional day in general education. On the other end of the bar graph, we have about 2% of our children who attend school at a private therapeutic day school in surrounding communities. When we look at how we do things in District 15, this district, long before I was here, has a very proud history of their commitment to not only implementing the letter of the law, but also the spirit of the law. And that's something that I think the community is very proud of and should continue to be proud of. We believe that a parent is a child's first teacher. The law mandates many things related to prior written notice for families and timelines that must be met. But beyond that, the spirit of the law is that the parent knows things about a child that we don't at school. They see children in environments and in the community and in settings that we don't, and that input is critical. We also take very seriously the procedural safeguards of the parents' rights. We also believe in our district that all children are general education students first. That's why we have to look at how we can provide and support children in the gen ed environment before we start talking about more restrictive self-contained settings. And we also believe that we should be serving our students as close to home as possible. And again, that leads to this district's decision many years ago to pull out of a co-op, not because the co-op program there's anything wrong with it, the co-op is quite strong, but in order to really serve our children as close to home as possible, the district created those that continuum of placement options right here within the 20 schools that we have. Annually and throughout the year, when we look at how do we manage to put all the pieces together, use the resources that we have, determine what resources we need, we are bound by some of the Illinois School Code legislation as well as guidelines from ISB. So there are class size requirements in special education that tell us what the maximum number of students may be in a particular type of classroom, and how many adult to children there need to be staffed in classrooms. Illinois has a workload plan for special educators, which is kind of unique to our state because we say that caseload is not the same as workload. So caseload is kind of just a raw count of the quantity of children. Workload is quite different. It's what is the work that's entailed in order to serve those children. And that's part of the negotiated agreement with our CTC. And then you've heard Mr. Adamczyk talk in the last year and a half or so about evidence-based funding and how now how we operate is funded. And all of the research that led to evidence-based funding is really foundational in terms of intensive early intervening services, adequacy targets for pupil support such as social workers, psychologists, counselors, and the number of students that they can serve, as well as the significant effect size that professional development and instructional coaching plays, which is provided by our special education administrators, our coordinators, directors, et cetera. So we operate underneath those laws and guidelines. And then we work hard to look at our existing resources and every year look at where our students are placed, where the student needs have been rising and falling, and how do we allocate our resources. Outcomes matter, and we're always watching carefully the growth, the growth and the assessments and the outcomes for our children through ESSA. So when we have different designations in our districts, students with disabilities are counted in those designations. And then most recently, one of the special education cases made it all the way to the United States Supreme Court in 2017, and that's the Andrew F. case. And that legislation is now being really implemented across the country and in the state of Illinois, again, focusing us on making sure that the I in the IEP is specific to an individual child, and that that child's IEP is reasonably calculated for that particular child to make growth and progress in light of that child's own circumstances. So it's been a long time since a special education case has gone to the U.S. Supreme Court, but that just happened in 2017, so we are responding and shifting in order to address that legislation. I wanted to end with a visual that you've seen before, but I think it's appropriate as we talk about an overview of special education in our district, because we know that fair does not mean equal. We know that equality and equity are two different things, and the district's focus, the board's focus on equity certainly encompasses all of those supports and services. I look at the benches underneath the children, and those are the special education services, so that we are really providing an equitable experience and equitable opportunities for all of our students. With that, I wonder if you have any questions. Okay. You have a book called Fish in a Tree. That's for your light spring break reading, if you so choose, or to share with your favorite youngster. It's geared for children 9, 10, 11 years old, but it's a story of a girl with a reading disability and the things that she goes through and the struggles she has, but also then what occurs when a really spectacular teacher comes into her life and the changes that makes for her. So I thought you might enjoy it, and feel free to pass it on to other youngsters in your family. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue.
Thanks. Very good presentation, and I appreciated the history.
I like to take a little walk. I was going to wear bell bottoms, but decided not.
The next item in my section is our preliminary student assignment plan for the 2019-20 school year, presented by Dr. Barbine and his team.
Paper, rock, scissors for the clicker. Good evening, Dr. Thompson, President Chupai, and members of the Board of Education. I'm joined here, as Dr. Thompson had referenced, by a great team, Sue Gehring and Meg Schnorr. And what we're going to do is talk about our draft student assignment plan to meet the needs of all of the students in District 15 for the 19-20 school year, which is going to be here before we all know it. So tonight we're going to talk a little bit about the guidelines that we use to make decisions about the resources necessary to meet the needs of our kids in the areas of English language learners, special education, and general education. We're going to talk a little bit about the special education, or rather student assignment process and timelines, and then the trends and projected needs. That's where we get to the actual numbers associated with meeting the needs of our kids in our district next year. So at that point, I'm going to turn it over to Meg.
All right, great. As you know, our English language learners comprise a large amount of our student population, and providing specialized instruction for them is required by law. We are required to staff for any type of situation in any one of our attendance centers or schools in which we have 20 or more students speaking a language other than English who qualify for ELL services. We're required to provide what's called a TBE, or a transitional bilingual education. So that means those are our students who, for the most part in our district, it's Spanish. If we have a certain number, if we have 20 or more of those students speaking a specific language, such as Spanish, we have to provide a qualified Spanish-speaking teacher for those classrooms. If the number of language classifications, if we have 19 or fewer students speaking a language in an attendance center or a school, we have to provide what's called a transitional, a transitional program of instruction for those students, which is better known as ESL services. When we are staffing for those classrooms, we have to look at the end of September to see what our average class size is in general education. And our ELL classrooms cannot be more than 90% of what our general education classes are. So whatever our gen ed classes are, our ELL classes have to be slightly smaller or 10% smaller. That's required by law as well. The next slide. Some things that we're considering for 1920 are that we have, of course, the board-supported and board goal of implementing dual language, and we're going to be expanding, of course, into first grade for our students who started with us in kindergarten, as well as continuing our kindergarten program for our dual language. So that is going to be a source, continues to be a source of need in our district to be able to find teachers who are qualified, which is extremely difficult, which leads to the next couple slides. We are hitting the 20 student mark in the areas of Hindi as well as Mongolian, so we're going to have to be providing certified teachers who are bilingual, not just happen to speak it, but they have to pass a very rigorous test at the state level proving that they are truly bilingual. And that is not a difficult, or that's not an easy position to fill. It's extremely difficult.
So we've covered a little bit of this just a few minutes ago, but when we look at the staffing needs in special education, there's a lot of legislation that really guides us to that. The least restrictive environment rules, the continuum of services obligations and requirements, and then making sure that we are following Illinois school code when we look at special education staffing. Looking to next school year, we are seeing a pretty dramatic increase in students who have significant needs in the areas of social, emotional, and behavioral services. And we've been looking at ways to provide those services not only in the general education setting, but also then sometimes in self-contained classes. We also see an increased need for comprehensive mental health service delivery for prevention and response. This ties into school safety factors. This ties into really identifying students who have significant mental health needs on the front end in a preventive way so that we're not finding ourselves in a reactive mode. We also have to make sure that we have related services staffing. Those are things such as speech and language, occupational therapists, social work, psychologists, those kinds of services, making sure that those are fully staffed in order to provide the services for the children in self-contained classrooms and in general education settings.
And so in terms of general education settings, District 15 does have targets established by the Board of Education as fundamental assumptions that are used in making decisions about allocating FTE, full-time teaching equivalents, to meet the needs of kids in general ed grades K through 8. And those class size targets include 20 students in each kindergarten class, 24 students in primary grades, grades 1 through 3, 26 students in our intermediate classes in grades 4 through 6, and then 28 students at our junior high level. In terms of thinking about next year, factors to consider, and this is something that I think we should be very proud of, is the work that we've done to be very flexible and creative with our existing resources. As Meg had mentioned, it's very difficult to recruit, select, and obtain teachers that have and hold multiple certifications, primarily teachers with certifications in bilingual areas, Spanish, Japanese, Urdu, you name it, because there are over 70 languages spoken, well over 70 languages spoken in the district. And what we've done is, in order to meet the needs of kids in a flexible and appropriate way, is we've been placing staff into general ed settings that have and hold multiple licensures so that they can meet the needs of a wide range of students, wide range of language needs in their classrooms versus pulling those same students out for language support outside of them. That's something that Dr. Cheryl Wolfel and Mrs. Lisa Nuss have just done a tremendous job doing over the course of the past several years. I mean, we did this last year. right? And we're continuing to do the work this year to really creatively and flexibly meet the needs of kids holistically in their classroom without them having to be pulled out for those same types of supports with another staff member. So I definitely think that that's something to be commended, and it's also an overlap very much so with respect to how we're providing services to our EL student learners. Space also continues to be an issue at some, not all, of our elementary schools, and it has required us to be very creative. If you could recall, all right, we have eliminated pretty much every one of our computer labs at our elementary schools so that we could absorb more classroom space. That was done 2 to 3 years ago. All right, we're still having to look creatively at space, and the good news is we're able to find it in some locations, and because of the fact that the Environmental Services Department is robust and it has any number of different professionals, architects, plumbers, HVAC, electrician, etc., drywall folks, we're able to build classrooms out of the existing footprint, using our in-house resources instead of having to go outside, and contracting that work out. We're having to do that in at least one school next year, and that school is Pleasant Hill, to try to obtain and achieve, greater instructional spaces, because even though our enrollment, has trended down over the past several years, not by much, but there has been a gradual decrease, that doesn't mean to say that we're seeing that same increase across all buildings in the district. Pleasant Hill, as I referenced, they're in double-digit growth, right? So we do have growth in some buildings, and we have some stability and then some decline in others, and that changes because communities change. So space continues to be an issue. So that moves us to the process and timeline. This is very much a team-based, collaborative process where individuals are working together, not only individually but collectively in their areas of responsibility and outside of their areas of responsibility to make the best decisions to be able to meet the needs of our kids moving forward. And so our central office review begins in December or January. And that's where Sue and Meg and Cheryl and Lisa and I sit down and we meet. And we're taking a look at existing and projected enrollments. We're taking a look at all those guidelines that we shared with you with respect to EL, special education, general education, class size targets. And we make decisions in terms of what or how each building is going to be allocated. That's when we arrive at the number of FTE or staff at each building. What we do then is we share that information with all principals in January. And we say to the principals, you know the needs of your building the best. Take this information, review it, have conversations with your staff, and come back to us if you have any questions in any area. So for example, somebody has questions about gifted staffing, they're going to talk to Tom Edgar. If somebody has questions about gen ed staffing, they'll contact me, special ed, Sue, so on and so forth. I don't mean to, not include anybody with respect to that. And I will tell you this, the principals will advocate for the children and their staff in their schools. So the phones will be picked up, conversations will be had with respect to making adjustments once principals are able to review what they're being given. And we will make adjustments as necessary because we're not necessarily going to have all the information or context at central office that a building principal is going to have. So we will work with them, we will consider what they're suggesting, and then what we do is we meet in early March. And we've just concluded 2.5 days of staffing meetings where we meet with each building principal for 30 minutes. Now, we've given them 2 months, 2 full months, to review their staffing information for next year and then to contact us with any questions that they have. Then we sit down, and that's where we pretty much finalize everything so that Lisa and her department can post any open positions because we know where people are moving, where open positions exist, etc. Because that has to correspond per contract, around the time that spring break, which is going to be here before we know it, begins. And so that's where we're at right now. And so what's going to happen between today, and the start of next school year is we are going to be monitoring on an ongoing basis at each school and at the district level what our enrollment is in all those areas that I discussed or that have been discussed. EL, special ed, general ed at each of our building sites. Principals are monitoring that information. We're monitoring that information. Teachers and parents are monitoring that information. And then we will have ongoing conversations and make adjustments all the way up till the first day of the school year. And then we will be presenting a finalized student assignment plan. Some of us will, at least, not all of us. Some of us will be presenting a student assignment full plan for the 1920 school year in October of next year. And so where we're at in terms of anticipated positions for next year, and that's in all areas that have been discussed, is we're shooting for 890 full-time staff members, certified staff members. That does represent an increase over this year of 8.347. Now, this is the high end of what we're projecting our needs are. It could very well be less than that, but this is the number that right now we feel comfortable with, and that has been shared with Mike Adamczyk in the business office, and that 890 number was shared with you as a part of the budget planning documents for the next school year. So that number has been accounted for. And it does represent an increase of approximately 1% of positions in the district. And we also provided a historical look as well, beginning in 16-17, moving forward. And so with that being said, what questions do you have?
Matt, is the increase more due to increases in, because I know the total student population has been going down, but is that because of just the demographics and some of the needs in the EL sections and whatnot?
I think some of that need is really attributed to special education services, school psychologists for comprehensive mental health services, as well as behavior specialists, and we've added a couple classrooms for students with autism as well. So that does account for some of that growth.
A Mongolian teacher, a Hindi teacher, you know.
Maybe.
Maybe.
One we find.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Now we're going to have two presentations from a couple of principals, Mr. Harris and Mr. Warren. Come on up and tell us about your school and your school improvement plans.
Good evening. My name is Matt Warren. I am the principal over at Conyers Learning Academy, and I want to thank you guys all for the opportunity to share a little bit about the school improvement journey that we have gone on over the last 3 years. So before I begin, I'd just like to introduce the members of our school improvement team, ranging from our administrative staff as well as representatives from all 4 of the major programs, as we talked about a little bit earlier, over at Conyers Learning Academy. As I introduced some of my friends earlier during the pledge, we have 4 major programs at CLA, 2 servicing students 3 to 5, being our early childhood and ECDEC programs. And then we have 2 programs in our therapeutic day school for our multiple needs and our ACES students. A little bit about our SIP journey over the last 3 years is we started with an area of a focus in math. It wasn't until spring of 2018, last year, during one of our Institute days, where our school improvement team, also known as our SIT, took a step back and realized that we service a very unique population and have a unique school at Conyers Learning Academy, and we needed to take a unique approach to the school improvement process. We felt that where we should change our focus is to more to the foundational skills that are required to be strong learners in the areas of reading and math, not necessarily as our focus on reading and math to start. So we made a shift and a change to social communication. Social communication, click, still clicking, there it goes. Social communication, what is that, you ask? That's a great question. Our belief is that social communication is the foundation for academic success. Our team identified 12 specific domains and skill areas that we feel are essential for students to be successful learners in a variety of areas. The majority of our students require direct instruction in each of these 12 areas, where general education students will pick these up more naturally or through their educational careers. With just like the other schools who have focuses in math and reading, we needed to narrow our focus of social communication down to 2 of those 12 areas. The first one that we identified is that students can communicate their wants and needs. A majority of our students are able to do this in a verbal capacity and be able to express their wants and needs within a classroom setting, but a number of our students are learning to communicate for the first time or maybe nonverbal, and we provide them with a number of different resources and supports to do that in a variety of ways. This picture on the left shows you a communication board that is a staple of our program and all 4 different programs that we have at CLA that support students in their communication both verbally and nonverbally. We have a quick little video, and hopefully this will work here, of a student using one of our communication boards expressing his wants and needs. Of course. We're going to try one more time. So as you can see in this video, the student is trying to open a container and he needs some assistance in doing so, and he nudges the teacher and gives her that nonverbal cue, which we all know, having kids, help me out. But the teacher is asking that student to then use their communication skills with the support of the board to ask for help. And she asks what he wants by touching the picture want, and then he quickly points to open, and she acknowledges that. And that's just one of the ways that students can acknowledge their wants and needs and communicate to staff using those communication devices. This is a very low tech, and we have students, if you saw during the pledge, some students using iPads to communicate as well with some voice output. The other area of focus that we have is for students to resolve conflicts using more pro-social behaviors. The picture on the right is a tool that we regularly use in our ACES program when a student's having a bad day, they're stuck, they're having trouble with the situation, and it's difficult to read the examples, but there's a green box and a red box, the green being more of those positive choices that they can make, which come in with positive results. Or on the opposite side, some of those negative choices they can make with negative results. And this allows us to have a rational conversation with students to share and talk through those choices, and hoping to teach them to eventually be able to make some of those positive choices independently, but having to talk through some of those situations. So we're continuing to try to utilize the tools that we have to teach these skills. We have a very strong connection between our school improvement plan as well as our PBIS system at Conyers Learning Academy. Both our ACES and multiple needs program, as well as our early childhood programs, have the same 3 core values that our district supports and aligns with our district strategic plan. In our ACES and multiple needs, it's be respectful, responsible, be safe. But with our early childhood and ECDEC classroom, we use a little more children-friendly language with be safe, be kind, be ready, with all the same meaning behind it. This year, one of the new implementations that we've had through our PBIS Green Team in the early childhood program is the MAC attack. MAC stands for movement, activity, and conversation. You can see in the picture that's our school mascot. In the early childhood, we've named him Mr. Mac, and he teaches those expectations through PBIS, as well as some of those social skills that are required that students need to learn and be directly taught as their first time in a school setting. And many of our 3 to 5-year-olds, this is their first experience with school, and so we have to explicitly teach those. In addition, we review those throughout the year, and we're currently in the process of doing our booster activities during the months of March and February to review those expectations and those social skills to make the educational setting as most successful as possible for our little ones. Our next steps, where our team is looking to go forward with, is to identify those look-fors for staff instruction as well as student engagement as we're continuing our walkthrough process. Develop an assessment tool that's going to monitor our students' growth in those social communication skills, and identify the most important instructional strategies, tools, and resources in each of those 12 areas that we can improve our instruction within the classroom for all students, not just our preschool students who are there in school for the first time, but for our kindergarten through 8th graders as well. We'd like to invite all of you to CLA at any time to come visit and see the amazing things that we have going on a day-to-day basis. And I want to thank you for your time and giving us an opportunity to share some of our story. If you have any questions, glad to help.
I thought for sure you'd open with a little singing video.
I was told to keep it to 5 minutes, so we can sing later. You can go to our Facebook page and see plenty of those videos. So
I have definitely done it already. Has anybody else? Frank, you gotta get on.
I have no idea.
all right, thank you very much.
Good evening. Thank you, President Shupai, Dr. Thompson, members of the board. I'm Robert Harris. I'm the principal at Willow Bend Elementary School. It's my first year there as a principal. This is my 26th year in the district, however. What I'm finding out about Willow Bend is it's a very unique school that has gone through a lot of changes and will continue to do so. One of the things that I found very interesting about Willow Bend is one of the most diverse buildings in our district. There are 43 languages that are spoken at Willow Bend, and we have 7 EL teachers that are currently employed there. Majority is Polish, Telugu, Tamil, and Bulgarian, and we are one of those that are looking at Hindi as our next language. Thank you, Matt, by the way. Another thing that I find interesting about our building is that it is ever increasing in population and enrollment. In the last 6 years, we have had an enrollment of over 100 students at our building, and which also drives, we're running out of space. One of the things we've had to do is we've had to move several special education programs out of Willow Bend. That is 2 ED/BD classrooms, which are SEAL classrooms, 2 crosscat classrooms, and 1 ECDEC classroom. So it is an ever-changing area at our school that we have to think about. One of the things that we're always changing and looking forward to is a positive change, and one of the things is we brought in our school is we are a Leader in Me school. This was brought in by Mrs. Melissa Sabatino a couple years ago, and it is a wonderful thing for the students. It does go along with our district strategic plan as well for preparing students for future success. Because we do have PBIS in our building right now, and that of course promotes positive behavior, but Leader in Me also teaches skills and strategies for a lifetime. There are 7 habits. I won't go into them, but we do have 7 habits that we teach throughout the year. The quote here is, if we keep doing what we're doing, we're going to keep getting what we're getting, is you got to go with the change, and you got to keep changing if you want new things to happen. So with the 7 habits, every month or 2 we focus on a habit in our classrooms and also in our whole school with different leadership assemblies. So we teach leadership to every student, we create a culture of student empowerment, and we align systems to drive results in academics. One of the things we do have to be careful about, though, with Leader in Me is it does have a big cost. We are one of only 2 buildings in the district that uses Leader in Me, and Kimball Hill is the other one. Mrs. Sabatino was able to get a grant so that we do have enough money to last us for a few years, but it's something, if we want to continue, we're going to have to look for other funds for that. That does come with materials and also resources for lessons. So with Willow Bend's Learning Centered problem, Mr. Mike Coleman, who's my assistant principal, and I are both new to the building this year. Mr. Coleman was there, and he recently returned. But we kind of had to start with a blank slate. We didn't really know what we needed there. And the SIP team that we came into, they were a little confused as well. And so we asked Dr. Tom Eder to come out, and really we just needed to look at what our same data, but we needed to ask the right questions. And with his help, he helped guide us to what those questions were. So our students were struggling with citing text evidence to support their answers, which really, we found out that when they asked a question, the teachers asked questions to our students about what they just read, they weren't able to answer it. And so we had to look at what that data showed, and we were able to talk to our teachers and what they needed to do, and then we did some walkthroughs. With those walkthroughs, we had to have a baseline data, which on the left is our September baseline data. We asked the students to answer one question from something that they had just read. Then the teachers wrote down what they were able to do. On the left, 34% were not able to cite evidence at all. And 42, which is in the yellow, 42% were able to cite with a prompt by the teacher, which is the red. And then 23 were correctly cited independently without any help, and that is the blue. In December, we took another dipstick, which is just a small sampling of students, which is 6 students per class. We had each teacher to do the exact same thing. And as you can tell on the right, we did a nice job so far as closing that gap. We reduced the number of students who could not cite evidence by a tremendous amount. Another big thing we have that has changed is Willow Bend was a multi-age building for years and years and years. Last year was the first year that they chose to go straight grade, and that was only from grades 3 through 6. This year, we are talking about maybe going through the whole building of straight grades, so we're looking into that. And there's a couple reasons why we might do that. First of all, we might look at a common math block for grades 2 through 6, and it's, bless you. And if we need a common math block for that, we would have to go straight grades from 2 to 6 or K to 6 as well. And then we also have Fontes Pinnell Classroom, which is coming from K through 3, which if we want to go straight grades with that, I think it would make it a lot easier to have the Fontes Pinnell Classroom in those grades as well. So next steps, how can we align a leader and me with PBIS? They're two separate things, but I think they can work together very well. We have Dr. Laura Swanland's going to be coming out and talking to our staff about that very soon. Another thing is restarting the process for DataWise to see if we need a new learner center problem or we keep it the same. And lastly, how do we handle the increase in student population with the way our numbers are rising? Any questions?
Have you looked at the space impact or the classroom impact, potentially of going straight grades for the whole?
We did.
Is it better or is it worse?
It's about
than
the
what we
same
have this-
right now. Yep. Anything else?
Doesn't easily fix the problem.
No, it doesn't. It does not.
We talked about that when they moved from the multi last year. That it was it going to be an issue and put squeeze on versus because the multi-grade, if you have bubbles, then the multi-grade can help smooth it, but it didn't seem like that was the case with
Right.
the population.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Last item in my section is the announcement of some new administrators, and I'm going to ask Dr. Hines to go up and do that.
Thank you, President Shupai, Dr. Thompson, members of the board. Tonight, it's my pleasure, for the second month in a row, to seek your approval for some new administrative positions for the 2019-2020 school year. And tonight, we're seeking approval for 2 new administrators. We are bringing forward Mary Lynn Smith, who is serving as the current Winston Campus Elementary Assistant Principal, where she has been in that role for the past 2 years. Prior to serving as Winston's elementary assistant principal, she worked as an AP at Gary M. Sanborn in the district. During her time as an assistant principal, she emerged as a child-centered leader that puts students first. And all you have to do is take one look at her smile to know that she's a warm and inviting leader that loves what she does. Ms. Smith has been part of the overall school improvement team, has worked to elevate the school's academic as well as social-emotional focus throughout the building. She has emerged through a multi-phase interview process as a top candidate, and when she was in the final round of interviews with teachers, teacher assistants, parents within the community, and members of both building as well as the senior leadership team, she emerged as our top candidate. It's nice Mr. Tiemann was in on the interview. He has worked with her for 2 years, and he spoke very highly of her and said she has a great deal of respect by staff and is very approachable in terms of parents. The parents at the interview also spoke very highly of her and were, I think, optimistic that she may become the new leader. So she would begin her role on July 1. But if approved, I can imagine that she and Mr. Tiemann will begin transition activities right away. One of their biggest tasks is going to be to find a new assistant principal for her to partner with, so she has to replace herself. Mr. Palmer has been working quite diligently on interviewing some assistant principals, and hopefully next month we'll bring any assistant principal candidates forward for approval. Another principal opening that we have is at Frank C. Whiteley. And tonight I'm recommending Ms. Faith Rivera as be the next principal at Whiteley. She has been a principal for 15 years, and she has worked here before. She's very familiar with us, and she served as a principal at Virginia Lake from 2004 to 2002. For the last 9 years, she went to our neighboring district in Schaumburg, District 54, and we're very glad to welcome her back into District 15. Throughout the process, she did often refer to District 15 as like coming home. So we hope to have this be her new home come July 1. As an administrator, though, throughout the paper screening and interview process, she really shone through, what shined about her was her ability to work collaboratively with staff and to build strong professional learning communities. She talked passionately about that. She likes to create learning environments that honor culture as well as academic diversity. And she certainly sets high expectations for herself and for others. She's focused on outcomes, but she wants to support staff and students to get to those outcomes. So I would ask that you also approve Mrs. Faith Rivera as the new Whiteley principal for the 1920 school year.
Mary Lynn and Faith, you want to stand up just so we can...
Okay, and we have another gentleman that I would like to speak to you about tonight, a proposed change. He's no stranger to District 15. He's worked here for the last 4 years as the Director of Assessment, Accountability, and Programs, and I am referring to Dr. Tom Edgar. Over his time in the district, he has overseen the district's assessment systems and launched the DataWise process that through the meetings I have attended, you hear from 2 principals each month talking to you about how they're using data to set goals and to refine goals to ensure students achieve at higher levels, and he's kind of the cornerstone of that work within the district. He also oversees the Gifted program and one of its primary social emotional support systems, and he's helped expand the quality and continuous improvement mindset within the district. In the numerous conversations I've had with Mr. Edgar so far, he wants to make a broader impact on the district, and he believes that joining the senior leadership team, which is the cabinet, will allow him to have a greater impact on the work that our principals are able to do with their teachers, and then ultimately the teachers driving student growth and improvement. So I am recommending that he receive a title change and become the Assistant Superintendent for District Improvement and Data. Questions?
Tom, would you like to stand up?
Thanks, Lori.
Thank you.
That's it for my section.
Great section.
It was.
All right, then I'll move on to my stuff. May I have a motion for the reading and acceptance of minutes, please?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the following meetings of the Board of Education: the February 13th, 2019 Board of Education Finance Committee meeting, and the February 13th, 2019 regular Board of Education meeting as presented.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Iannarino,
Aye.
Border,
Aye.
Khan,
Aye.
Smolka,
Aye.
Shupai,
Aye.
Vaughn.
Aye.
Motion carries. Board discussion and reports. Ed Red. Frank?
Okay, so legislature's back in session, we got the new governor, and a lot of stuff going through these committees. One thing that was interesting was that there's a proposal for requires all school boards to develop threat assessment protocols and to create threat assessment teams. It also requires that the threat assessment protocol be a public document and be posted on the school district's website. And we do have things like that in place, and I think what we really want to do though is probably be preemptive there and get it out on our website. It's something we talked about, I think, back in like March, April last year. So I think that's something we should probably get ahead of the curve on and get something out there, because I think it makes everybody always feel a little bit better when they know what happens in case of an emergency at our schools, and that we are actually have everything under control and plan. We have a plan in place and protocols. So I think that's something we should instead take care of before we actually have to be forced to do it. What are the things we have here? We've got something out there where they're saying they want to end the authority granted to school boards to transfer money from the Educational Operations, Maintenance, and Transportation or Tort Immunity Fund. I think right now we do have that flexibility, right, Mike?
We do.
Yeah, so I mean, that's something that I think it's good to keep the flexibility there, so hopefully that does not get passed. let's see, some of the other things, like I said, we got the new governor, and he talked about, in his budget address, about how much deficit we have, 3.2 billion, just this year, 15 billion, backlog of unpaid bills. So, yeah, I'm not sure, what we're gonna do to get out of that hole there, but, he's gonna raise, hopefully raise taxes, I guess, with, recreational use of marijuana, which I'm not sure exactly how that's gonna fill a hole that big, considering he's estimating you're gonna get $170 million from that, and I'm sure it's a lot of associated expenses come with doing that too. Sports betting is the other big chunk, and then the other big chunk would be imposing taxes on insurance companies, and then of course switching to a graduated income tax. So that's what they talked about. Nothing about cutting and spending though. Yeah.
That was going to be my question.
No, nothing about cutting spending, no. In fact, they talk about increasing spending in certain areas. Pensions is another big problem. They haven't figured out what they're going to do with that. And then, let's see, they're still actually bringing up that PE bill about increasing the number of hours, having that be mandatory, increase to 150 weekly minutes of PE for elementary students, which I think that does impact us. So that would be a problem. Hopefully that doesn't pass, and I think it's pretty unpopular, so hopefully that gets shut down. Let's see if there's anything else that was interesting. I think that's about it. I think that's enough for now.
Just on the threat assessment team, we are working on that. And,
oh, cool.
And one of the readings for the first reading of policy changes, 4170, has that listed in there that we will have a team be proactive in that. So.
Great.
1-5 Foundation, Barb's not here, but I believe that the drawing is coming up. Would you like to speak to that, Mary?
The 1-5 Foundation's 50/50 raffle drawing is coming up this Sunday. It'll be live on the district's Facebook website at 5:29 p.m. If you haven't got a chance to get your ticket, we're selling them straight up, online, straight up until noon on Sunday. And the winner, if we didn't even sell one more ticket after right now, but I know I just influenced at least 10. But if we don't sell one more ticket after this very second, the winner will be walking away with almost $14,000 cash, minus what the taxes come out. So we have almost over 270 tickets sold. Thank you so much to those of you. I know there's many of you in this room that have already supported it, and we're thrilled with the response and excited for Sunday. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, Finance Committee, Dave, Anthony, anything new since last month?
No, nothing to report.
I didn't think so, but I figured I'd ask. Equity Committee, Zubair?
There's nothing to report. There's
Okay. All right, board policy, first reading of the policies were in the packet, many of them. So, are there any, does anybody have any commentary on any of the board policies that were there?
So the process is that they're available for a month for people to read and comment on, and then come back to this board for the next meeting. And if there's been nothing substantial that someone said, there will be second reading and then adopted. But most of these were minor. There was nothing significant. I don't think I really need to highlight any of the policies. But they're all going to improve the policies, but it won't make any huge impact on them.
We will now open our meeting for public comment. Please remember that this is not a dialogue between you and the board. If you have a specific issue which requires a response, Superintendent Thompson will get back to you. Please state your name and identify any group that you represent. Limit your remarks to no more than 5 minutes. If someone previously has articulated something with which you agree, please state that you agree rather than reiterating the entire comment. Finally, avoid any commentary specific to a person, student, or staff member, respecting that person's right to privacy. This is not the forum to comment on personnel issues. Any commentary, Joe? I did it. All right, would anybody like to say anything? All right, thanks for coming. We'll try a little mind read. Moving on to action items, item 19-320, the personnel report. May I have a motion?
I make a motion to approve the March 13, 2019 personnel report, including the following recommendation. Recommendation for disciplinary action, Alejandro Espinoza, 1 day unpaid suspension, and recommendation for disciplinary action, La Cisauri, 1 day unpaid suspension, as presented.
Second,
Second.
discussion?
The only discussion I would have is, there's a few moves that, I don't know, as we're in the transition period with Dr. Thompson leaving and Dr. Hines coming in, there's a couple moves into the central staff, some replacing, one expanding. I think any of those that sort of create an expansion, and there's one additional position at the end of this, and I totally agree with it and support it. But I think having more communication earlier about that would be helpful going forward.
Would that be during, like, does Scott send a memo on Friday to include it there? Because I know I communicate with Lisa just monthly, but.
Yeah, I
do you
mean,
want that
it's
to
kind of,
include?
if you know it's gonna be needed, you know, at the one board meeting so that we can know what's coming from a head count. I think as, you know, we look at the finance committee, we get real granular, you know, with the presentation tonight, we're talking about the CTC head count and the central staff, it's just, us, you know, just to make sure we have the viewpoint into it.
What I'm hearing, Dave, is the opportunity to look at the impact
Yeah,
before the point that
just
it's
understand, because there's a
that
lot of
decision.
pieces that move and you have a lot of flexibility in there, but when it creates that expansion of head count, just to call that out.
Okay. All right, any further discussion? Roll call?
Border,
Aye.
Khan,
Aye.
Smolka,
Aye.
Shupai,
Aye.
Wong,
Aye.
Anarino.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 19-321, motion please.
I make a motion to approve resolution honorable dismissal of teachers as presented.
Second,
Second.
discussion? Did everybody receive just the heads up that it's potentially non-recurring headcount, right? Where we don't know what our total,
Yeah, I think Barb asked that question, I shared it with you. It's really part-time people. We don't know that we necessarily have the positions for the next year, so we release them. But as soon as we find out we have the positions, we rehire them. If we don't release them and we don't have a position, we still have to pay them. So it's just.
Okay, that's what I was gonna ask.
roll call?
Khan,
Aye.
Smolka,
Aye.
Shupai,
Aye.
Wong,
Aye.
Anarino,
Aye.
Border.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 19-322, motion please.
Make a motion to approve the resolution, non-renewal of administrative contract and dismissal of third-party probationary teacher for reasons other than reduction in force as presented.
Second,
Second.
discussion? Roll call?
Khan,
Aye.
Smolka,
Aye.
Shupai,
Aye.
Wong,
Aye.
Anarino,
Aye.
Border.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 19-323, motion please.
I'll make a motion to approve the additional staff allocation for student services as follows. Adding 1 Assistant Director of Student Services and changing 1 Special Education Coordinator positions to a 2nd Assistant Director of Student Services, resulting in an increase of 1.0 position in the Student Services Department, as recommended. Both positions will be funded through the Individual with Disabilities Education Act, followed through grant as supplemental supports and services to address the educational needs of students with disabilities.
Second,
Second.
discussion?
So this is actually, this is the other piece of what I was talking about, so it's, makes sense.
The funding aspect.
Through the grant.
Yeah. But your original point is, get it. Roll call?
Smolka,
Aye.
Shupai,
Aye.
Wong,
Aye.
Anarino,
Aye.
Border,
Aye.
Khan.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 19-324, motion please.
I make a motion to approve the memorandum of understanding as presented.
Second,
Second.
discussion? Roll call?
Shupai,
Aye.
Wong,
Aye.
Anarino,
Aye.
Border,
Aye.
Khan,
Aye.
Smolka.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 19-325, motion please.
Make a motion to approve the renewal of Miller Cooper and Company LTD independent auditor agreement for an additional 3 years as recommended. Fee estimates to perform audit and non-audit services are presented as follows. Year ending June 30th, 2019, $27,800. Year ending June 30th, 2020, $28,600. Year ending June 30th, 2021, $29,500.
Second?
Second.
Roll call? Oh, I'm sorry. Discussion? Anybody? It's always an interesting report.
No, this
Worth it.
It looks like, this is a very reasonable contract relative to what was being paid before and the service we've been provided.
Mike's always trying to save money.
Yes, I am.
Further discussion? Roll call.
Wong.
Aye.
Andreino.
Aye.
Porter.
Aye.
Khan.
Aye.
Smolka.
Aye.
Shupai.
Aye. Motion carries. Item 19-326, motion please.
I make a motion to award the contract for the carpet tile and rubber tile flooring bid 19-017 to Vortex, Addison, Illinois, in the amount of $419,899.39. Vendor selection was based on lowest responsive bidder.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? Are we positive that amongst the three that we're looking at the same quality of product that's being purchased, Mike? There was a dramatic difference in the cost of what I would consider materials.
So we actually did two bids. We looked at carpet tiles and we did broadloom, okay? And the broadloom is cheaper because it's cheaper than carpet tile.
Less labor, yeah.
We'll do broadloom at Virginia Lake, and we'll put that in the hallway, and that'll match what's in the classroom. That's a Candace product, which we've done in this district in 9 years I've been here, and I've been putting Candace, which used to be called Collins and Aikman, for like over 20 years. And then we also are gonna put Shaw product into Central Road. It's very similar. We look at stitches per inch. One is 8 stitches per inch. The other one's 9 stitches per inch. We looked at the dye content of the product. One is 60%, one's 100%. We looked at the size of the nap of the carpeting. One's about a 1/16 of an inch higher than the other one. So we've used Shaw, probably a lot more about carpeting than you want to know.
Yes. Yeah. But
So,
clearly
and they both
you
have about a
checked.
20-year match on it.
Okay.
The Candace product, the design is called Crayon. It's got a 1990s look to it. We're going to put Shaw at Central Road. It's got a linear look to it, and we can put quarter turns on the tiles so we can get designs on it, which is, I think, a lot more fun, for lack of a better word, and a nice design. So they're substantially similar. We'll see, and then we should get at least 20 years out of both of them, and then we'll see how the Shaw product holds up. We'll look at that versus Candace a year from now, and then we can make a decision next year where we go. I think they're both fine products. They really, really are.
All right. You more than answered my
Sorry.
question.
We spent a lot of time, so Valerie and Ivy and myself, we went out to buildings, we actually went to Vernon Hills High School, for example, and looked at the Shaw product that they've had there for about 15 years. There's no wear marks on it. We met with their maintenance director. It's not peeling up, so that's held up really, really well. So we were happy with that. So we spent a lot of time, obviously, on looking at carpet.
Great. Yeah, it was impactful,
Yeah.
the difference in the
And it is
the base
a
cost.
substantial savings on the Shaw product,
Very
too.
much so, yeah. All right. Any other questions? Roll call?
Andreino.
Aye.
Porter.
Aye.
Khan.
Aye.
Smolka.
Aye.
Shupai.
Aye.
Wong.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 19-327.
I make a motion to award the contract for the physical education uniform bid 19-018 to Ambassador Athletic, Rolling Meadows, Illinois, for a 3-year contract at an estimated amount of $63,525.24 as recommended. The award is based on lowest vendor meeting bid specifications.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Porter.
Aye.
Khan.
Aye.
Smolka.
Aye.
Shupai.
Aye.
Wong.
Aye.
Andreino.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 19-328. Motion, please.
Make a motion to award the contract for the Chromebooks with accessories, warranty, services, and options bid 19-019, Part 1 of 2, inclusive of Lenovo Chromebooks license, 3 years extended warranty, and delivery to Riverside Technologies Incorporated, North Sioux City, South Dakota, in the amount of $398,381.20. Additionally, award the contract for protective cases to Hut Global, doing business as Volume Cases in Boca Raton, Florida, in the amount of $26,781, for a total bid award amount of $425,162.20 as recommended.
Second?
Second.
Discussion?
So in this one, there was, just for clarity, there is another bid which appears lower than the Hut Global one, but when we inquired about it and got some discussion going, it's not this comparable material. It's, they're both listed as always on case, but one requires an extra component in order to be equal to it. So the Hut Global one works out to be the most effective.
Roll call?
Khan,
Aye.
Smolka,
Aye.
Shupai,
Aye.
Wong,
Aye.
Iannarino,
Aye.
Porter.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 19-329.
I make a motion to award the contract for the musical instruments bid 19-020 to the following 5 vendors. Sam Ash, Buffalo Grove, Illinois, $955.09. Washington Music, Wheaton, Maryland, $13,002.35. Music and Arts, Frederick, Maryland, $21,952.85. Casio Music, New Berlin, Wisconsin, $19,297.64. Quillen and Fabish, Burr Ridge, Illinois, $540, for a total bid award amount of $55,747.93 as recommended.
Second.
Second.
Discussion? All right, roll call.
Khan,
Aye.
Smolka,
Aye.
Shupai,
Aye.
Wong,
Aye.
Iannarino,
Aye.
Porter.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 19-330, the consent calendar. Would anyone like to remove anything? May I have a motion to approve?
Make a motion to approve the consent calendar as presented.
Second?
Second.
Roll call.
Smolka,
Aye.
Shupai,
Aye.
Wong,
Aye.
Iannarino,
Aye.
Porter,
Aye.
Khan.
Aye.
Motion carries. Correspondence, Dr. Thompson?
There were 3 requests and 3 responses for information under the Freedom of Information Act during the period of February 8th through March 7th. On February 14th, a request was received from Bob Sessanjara, Daily Herald staff writer. The response to this request was sent on February 22nd. On February 19th, a request was received from Sulema Griffin, Sheet Metal Works. The response to this request was sent on February 26th. On February 19th, a request was received from Ed Luberta. The response to this request was sent on February 26th.
All right, thanks. And finally, may I have a motion to adjourn?
Could I just, before we do that, sorry,
Yes.
quickly, just, we are not going to have another meeting before the election, and there'll be 3 seats up for this particular board. Very important things that get done by this board. People that don't get paid spend a lot of time. This board has been really exceptional, and I'd like to encourage people to vote so that we can continue to have a really high-quality board to govern the district moving forward. So make sure you get out and vote April 2nd.
Perfect. Thank you. May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right, second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.